Welcome to another year at Hogwarts.
Hogwarts Legacy brought the Wizarding World to life in a way that no other Harry Potter media has. But I bet you didn't know that Snape from Potter Puppet Pals was in it. Here's 15 things you missed in Hogwarts Legacy.
For tune-up major.
It's all right. Go in.
One of the most magical things about Hogwarts is the food.
Let the feast begin.
Every morning, noon, and evening brings the students of Hogwarts mountains of the most delectable dishes you can imagine. Everyone who fell in love with these books dreamed of sneaking into the castle's kitchens and making off with a midnight snack. And now you can. Players can enter the kitchen in the exact same way it was described in the books. Find the portrait of fruit near the Hufflepuff common room and tickle the pear. In a Slytherin exclusive mission, players have to get past a wall with a mural of the giant squid. The way they do this is by putting a piece of toast on an altar. Now, the uninitiated might think this is a goofy, kid-friendly way of avoiding a depiction of a violent satanic sacrifice. It's a callback to a throwaway line in one of the books where Harry and his friends would spend summer afternoons feeding the giant squid bits of toast. If you've ever wanted to go to Hogwarts, and really, who hasn't, chances are you'd want to explore the bathrooms. What? Am I the only one? Think of all of the legendary events that have taken place inside the bathrooms of Hogwarts. We found the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, met a tragic victim of Muggle-born racism, and we even got to see Draco Malfoy drain his blood all over the floor. It was also the first time the audience was introduced to the furries of the Wizarding World via Hermione's failed attempt at brewing a Polyjuice potion. Hopefully, who's ever brewing up their own Polyjuice potion in Hogwarts Legacy is more careful with whose hair they use. In the quest Haunted Hogsmeade, fans can live out their ultimate fantasy, owning property. Once the winter season rolls in, players can meet Hogsmeade resident Cassandra Mason, who offers them the opportunity to own their own local business for the low price of 1,500 galleons. Keep in mind that a galleon is worth about $25 in the books, so that shakes out to about $37,500.
Best not to mention this to anyone, Harry.
But, like any seemingly good deal from a landlord, the shop comes with one string attached. That string is a poltergeist named Fastidio, and he challenges you to a few games in his little playground. One of those games is a life-size chessboard that's modeled after the exact one that was used to guard the Sorcerer's Stone. Fastidio even moves his knight to h3, harkening back to Ron's heroic sacrifice in the first book. If there's one thing you can count on in the Wizarding World, it's that the Weasleys always have your back.
Harry, how wonderful to see you, dear.
Unless you get enrolled in a tournament arc without your consent, then they'll abandon you. Thankfully, that's not the case with the deputy headmistress, Matilda Weasley, who's the reason you get to enroll in Hogwarts as a fifth-year student. But I don't think anyone was expecting Fred and George to show up, especially since their grandparents wouldn't even have been born yet. Okay, they're not actually Fred and George, as far as we know, but it's kind of suspicious that two tall, ginger twins would be peering into Zonko's joke shop. While this could be chalked up to an Easter egg planted by the developers, while sneaking around the library's restricted section with the innocently named Sebastian Sallow, they'll come across a floating book. Sebastian will take note of it, mentioning the title Secrets of the Darkest Art, along with his affinity for the book's contents. If you were playing this game with your parents or older sibling and couldn't understand why they flipped their lid, let me explain. Reading Secrets of the Darkest Art is how Tom Riddle learned how to make Horcruxes. It was the sole catalyst to his rise to power and his borderline immortality. The process of making a Horcrux is pretty simple. Split your soul in half. How do you do that? Avada Kedavra, along with the other two forbidden curses, can be learned in Hogwarts Legacy, meaning you too can act out your lifelong dream of becoming a Death Eater. As everyone's favorite godfather was keen to mention, the Black family was one of the most detestable in the Wizarding World. A spitting image of pure-blood privilege, if there ever was one, exemplified through the headmaster Sirius Black. Thankfully, the game is keen to remind us of Sirius through an Easter egg. Upon going through Professor Ronen's office and finding their way up the Winding Tower, players will stumble across a single, mysteriously locked cell, which they can quickly bypass using the game's accessibility options. The field guide points out that the Dark Tower cell was previously used to lock up a troll and ponders what its future purpose will be. That purpose ends up being imprisoning a man for a crime he didn't actually commit. Such is the way of this cruel and unjust world. In between the main story, classes, and raiding bandit camps, you might have come across the groundkeeper's hut near the southern entrance of Hogwarts. It's kind of insane that despite taking place 100 years before the books, it's just like how it looks in the movies, right down to the pumpkin patch. Nice to see that the standard of living hasn't changed over the years. At least we're in a time where plumbing exists. I can't imagine being a developer having to program and animate a subsystem where wizards relieve themselves wherever they stand and vanish away whatever's left. Hey, don't look at me. JK said it herself. Although what might be weirder than that infamous tweet is that the groundskeeper's hut has a gravestone with a hippogriff on it. I know it's just the developers paying homage to the best book in the series.
Isn't he beautiful?
But I can't help but think that hippogriffs attacking students has always been a part of the Hogwarts legacy. In the hospital wing, you can find a child vomiting up slugs into a bucket. Not sure how he ended up like this, but it's my bet that one of the house elves slipped something into his food as the start of a failed house elf revolution. But, like every other entry on this list, this is one of the devs paying homage to one of their favorite moments from the original series. I'm of course talking about the time that Ron tried to curse Malfoy for calling Hermione Mudblood with a broken wand, causing it to backfire on himself. You know, Ron gets a lot of flack from the fanbase, but good on him for standing up against wizard racism. The Room of Requirement is home to anything your mind can imagine. It can be used as a dojo for training your student revolution, an emergency bathroom for when you're up past your bedtime, or just a massive closet. And it's within this closet that you'll find one of this game's most adorable secrets. As you venture through the room, you can happen upon a jack-in-the-box that bears an odd resemblance to everyone's favorite brooding, abusive potions master, Severus Snape. This adorable fella is here to honor what may be the single greatest thing to come out of the entire franchise: Potter Puppet Pals. Deep in the Forbidden Forest rests an unlit bonfire with a sword inside of it. Seasoned gamers will immediately recognize it as the iconic bonfire in From Software's Dark Souls, which served as one of the game's many checkpoints. It's even got a cute little plush mandrake on top. How cute! Mandrakes are pretty cute when they're not bursting your eardrums. But the soulful nods to one of gaming's modern titans of industry don't stop there. Just past this bonfire lies a graveyard littered with tombstones, with several jutting out of the surrounding walls. On one hand, this could be an economic use of space, but anyone with enough PTSD from Elden Ring will immediately recognize it as a tribute to that game's starting area, Limgrave. Regardless of intent, this really speaks to how awful the security at Hogwarts has always been if this many people died within the castle grounds. One of the many elements of Hogwarts that gave it so much life were the portraits. From Sir Cadogan to the fat lady of the Gryffindor common room, the castle is literally brimming with personality from wall to wall.
Are you deaf? Put that light out.
But there's a pretty significant portrait in Hogwarts Legacy that isn't even animated. Within the restricted section of the library, players can come across a portrait of the castle's current headmaster, Phineas Nigellus Black, and his lovely wife. But between them, you can see a grumpy little house elf holding a book. It's pretty safe to say that this is Kreacher, the house elf of the Black family. Kreacher would eventually sell out his master Sirius and effectively get him killed by Bellatrix Lestrange, only to be inherited by Sirius's godson, Harry. Harry would eventually use Kreacher to spy on Draco Malfoy and the Half-Blood Prince, so maybe a future game will let the player send Deke on missions. If the player enters the girls' bathroom in the Slytherin dungeon, they'll come across a very familiar sink. If they cast Revelio, they'll get a field guide note that comments on the snake symbol carved into it. This is the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, aka the home to the world's most racist snake, the Basilisk, pawn of Salazar Slytherin, enemy of Muggleborn witches and wizards for generations. It's a shame you can't actually enter the chamber, especially since Ominous Gaunt is capable of speaking Parseltongue. Maybe he just doesn't want to go into the girls' bathroom, which I respect. Towards the end of the game, the player embarks on a series of trials. Neve Fitzgerald, the former headmistress of Hogwarts, directs the player to a book that transports them into a stealth section, where they evade death itself, procuring 3 powerful artifacts in the process. While the game doesn't explicitly state their names, series veterans know what's up. They're collecting the Deathly Hallows, an infallible invisibility cloak, the Elder Wand, and finally, the Resurrection Stone. This entire sequence comes with a gorgeous shift in art direction that matches the storybook vibe present in the Tales of Beetle the Bard, where the story of the Deathly Hallows originated. It doesn't quite match the style used in the movie's depiction of the story, but it's an incredible inclusion nonetheless. Whoever had the idea for this whole mission deserves a raise. With the title Hogwarts Legacy, you can imagine the scope of the story. Players expected a faithful recreation of the castle, and the ability to travel to Hogsmeade was a pleasant surprise. Not having Quidditch is a bit of a downer though. I don't understand how the game got so many 10 out of 10s with that kind of a mission. That being said, being able to travel to Azkaban almost makes up for it. I say almost because you don't get to do much other than talk to an inmate about the murder of Richard Jackdaw, but it's something. You even get to talk to the portrait of Eldritch Diggory to start the quest. That's right, Eldritch Diggory, the great-great-grandfather of everyone's new favorite Batman. Now, you might wonder how a quest that progresses the main story counts as something you missed. Well, Each of the houses solve Jackdaw's murder in a different way, and this unexpected field trip to magical Guantanamo Bay is only accessible to students of Hufflepuff House. That's right, the best house gets the best quest. And only 17% of players pick Hufflepuff, so I know most of you missed this one. And much like the end of every book, we return from the wizarding world back to our cold reality. Did you find everything on this list in your playthrough? Was there something we forgot to mention that more people should know about? Let us know in the comments below.